It's a real pleasure to be here in Europe. I come from the UK. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to talk to you today about dying. Yeah, you're all going to do it. And so I think it's very important that we understand what it's about. At the moment, I think we're missing several tricks, and I hope to show you that that is true. You see, dying is going to be our last great adventure. Now, many of my colleagues don't agree with what I say, so perhaps the only time you'll hear about this last great adventure is here today. May I suggest that you all listen attentively, because you all may need it. So, I rang up a famous English newspaper and said to them, "Would you take an article on dying?" They said, "No." And then he added, I suppose really as a sop to me, "You see, we don't do dying." Oh yes, they do dying. They'll all die in exactly the same way that we do. What we do at the moment is we sweep death under the carpet. And I think this is because we don't wish to understand it. If we did understand it, I think we'd find it something very different from how it's portrayed now. Of course, it's death of the body, but it's the loosening of consciousness. And I think this loosening of consciousness produces a whole set of effects which we ought to understand. Now, we set out to look at this. We looked in hospices and nursing homes and palliative care team in the UK. We did a study in Holland. And we also, Una McColville did a study in Ireland using our questionnaire. We talked on television and radio, and we got over 1,500 accounts of what happens when we die. And so what we did then was to put together these and to make a cartoon. I've made a cartoon for you of the dying process. You probably can't see that. Premonitions, I'm not going to talk about today. We'll start with deathbed visions, which occur shortly before death. Deathbed visions are when the dying say they see dead relatives that come to them. It's not always dead relatives. Look what St. Francis got. Would you all like that? I think it wouldn't be too bad, but that's old technology. I think probably with new technology we can change these things a bit. So who do the dead relatives come for? They come to give a message. They say they will be back there to take the dying on a journey. They say that they come to greet them. And the dying are always pleased to see their dead relatives. In our series, it's mainly your mum and dad who's coming. Well, that's okay, presumably. Then, who sees them? Well, the dying, of course, but other people in the room occasionally, and sometimes children, probably slightly more often. Even the hospice staff see them occasionally. So they are seen by other people. Now, some of them will set the time of death. By that, they say, we will be back in a week, and then we'll take you on your journey. Now, they can be negotiated with, so you have to remember this. They won't let you go to a wonderful party, but they might let you wait for a member of the family who's coming to visit. Here's a story. One of our stories was told to me. I was attending a patient with a fellow nurse, again around 4 in the morning. The patient asked us to stand one on each side of him, because he wanted to thank us for looking after him. He then looked over my shoulder towards the window and said, "Hang on, I'll be with you in a minute. I just want to thank these nurses for looking after me." The patient repeated himself a couple of times and then died. So he bought himself a short period. Now, the next thing that happens is you go into an alternate reality. Some people go into an alternate reality. Do you see it? I can't show it to you because the pointer doesn't work, but it's the next one along the line which says new reality. Now, this is a fascinating thing. What are these people doing? Sometimes they're in the hospice, sometimes they're in this other reality, then back to the hospice, other reality. What's it like? Well, I've got good news for you. It is, in fact, full of light, love, and compassion. Your dead relatives are there, and sometimes the dying, say, spiritual presences are there as well. So it's a really quite a pleasant pace. And indeed, it's very reassuring. This is what one of my patients, what one of my stories said. Don't worry, Leslie, I'm all right. I can see and hear the most beautiful things, and you must not worry. And he quietly died, lucid to the end. So it's a very reassuring view that they do. Now we come to the last thing before we actually die. That's terminal lucidity, which you may be able to see. Terminal lucidity is fascinating. It's your last chance to say goodbye to your family and your last chance to greet the deathbed visitors who have come to pick you up if you haven't greeted them before. Now, what's interesting about it is that people who've been in coma for maybe a long time suddenly alert from their coma, sit up, greet these people, and then go back to sleep again. Lie back again and die. Now, you come to death itself, and death really is a very interesting event. What happens in death is that there is this huge interconnectedness and emotional interconnectedness between you and people who you know closely. You'll go and visit them. For example, we have lots of accounts of these. There was a mother in Australia, son in England. She thought the son was well. She got a visit in a dream, because she was asleep at the time he died. She got a visit in the dream. Her son went to her and said, "I'm okay, Mum. Everything's all right now. Please don't worry." And then she knew that he had died. So she phoned up the next day and found out that he had died in the UK. Now, if you're awake, then the visit feels like an imperative. You have to do something. This connectedness shows itself in other ways. Animals behave quite differently. Dogs know when their owners have died, and cats get disturbed at that time. Now, there are other things which happen. There's light in the room of the dying. I think this is most interesting. We need sensors in the room to find out what it is. Now, how are you going to die? Please make sure you don't end up like this. Do you really want to be like that, with tubes and ventilators? No, you don't. You'd like to be like that, in a hospice, with the family visiting, and it's the most wonderful, wonderful event. So do see if you can organize your death like that. So what I'd like to do is say, in a nutshell, preparing for a good death. Teach people, including children, not to be afraid of dying. So important. Learn what may happen when you learn what may happen when you die, and for heaven's sake, do discuss death, as many of your friends will, in fact, have stories to tell you. Prepare for death. Don't clean out your attic, but clear up your relationships. So, thank you very much indeed.